Hello. Hi, guys. Signora, behave yourself. Behave yourself. Dog is being very, 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 very much of an ass today. Last night, so once in a while, Cindy does this marvelous thing, and it's usually when I'm the busiest because I'm not paying enough attention to her. She will pee in my bed. And she doesn't just like pee on a pillow, like on a one singular pillow. Привет, Sophia. Hi, Theo. She will pee like on all of my pillows. And I mean, like, I mean it. She will like go and like, like slightly pee on every single one just to make sure that I see it. And so last night, I was incredibly busy. I was putting together a video, a video for Mission Kharkiv and for social media, and I was like doing so many things, and I like smell something, and I'm like, where is this coming from? And so I have so many pillows in my bed that it's like hard to tell, right? And I'm like, maybe I'm just making things up. I'm just waiting for something that isn't happening. Thank you, Sophia. And I'm just, I'm just making it up. And then I come up to my bed and I look at my bed, and there's like little tiny Cinny peas everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God. So there's one pillow that survived, and I slept on that pillow, and I packed everything else into like, laundry bags because I'm in New York and you can't wash your stuff really in your apartment because thank you so much, Darlene, because most people don't have things and don't have like laundry in their apartment unless you're incredibly lucky or can pay a lot of money for an apartment. And yeah, so here we are. I'm very happy that I couldn't sleep, and I'm very happy that I was really mad at this little French gremlin creature. But yeah, Netlin says, I'm bummed that I missed the Zoom calls. So on Patreon, we're now going to do Zoom calls every month on the first Thursday of the month. So you'll make it to the next one. And I'm also going to see please let me know. So I know that Ukraine already did the daylight savings time. Did everybody else in Europe already switch to daylight savings? Because if so, then this is actually perfect because we've been doing lives at 3:30 on the channel during the week. And so because you guys if you're in England, you used to be 5 hours ahead, and now I'm assuming it's 4. So what we're going to do is we are going to switch on Monday to 2:30 Eastern, which will still keep it the same in Europe, and I think we'll keep it still at like a good time in the US. So, but what was I? Oh, but what I was trying to say is that I think that because these Zoom calls are on Thursdays pretty late, they're at 8 p.m. Eastern. A lot of people in Europe are not going to be able to make it. So we might do the first Saturday of the month, and we might do them like, midday. So maybe after the live or something like that. It's just that I am trying to do it so that I'm not on live for 2 hours and then also on Zoom for an hour. Hi, Darlene, because I feel like I'm not going to be super, I think I'm not going to be very, very like upbeat and stuff. I think I'm just going to be tired. So we're going to figure it out. For now, it's the first Thursday of the month in the evening on Patreon. So we'll do Zoom calls, but we will see. Maybe it'll be like the first Saturday. Point is, it's definitely happening every month. We're just going to see what schedule works best. So, because I know that a couple of people are from Europe, and I'm pretty sure there are also a couple of people from Australia, which is, I don't know how to do that. That is such a big time difference. But 8 p.m. Well, 8 a.m. Nobody wants to do a Zoom call on Friday at 8 a.m. Okay, so we're gonna figure it out. But so far, it is what it is. Let me say the hellos to everybody. So hi Drake, hi Prexis, hi Gap, hi Carolyn, Armin, Kathleen, Jillian, Brandy, Kayla, Lauren, and Grumpy, and also hi Nicole. Oh my gosh, Darlene, you're in Scotland. Oh my God, I really, really, really want to go to Scotland. I want to go to Scotland and Wales so bad. I want to go to Scotland and Wales so incredibly bad. You have no idea. Those are like the two places that I'm so excited for, and they've been on my bucket list forever. And I feel like there is a lot of overlap in history in Scotland and Wales and Ukraine in terms of like, fighting for our culture and our independence and fighting for like our way of life and stuff like that. And so I'm really, really, really excited to go at some point. Also, Scotland looks beautiful. Like, oh my gosh, all of the plains and all of the castles and all of the, I'm basically very, very, very excited for Scotland. Oh, hi, Netlin. Thank you so much for the feathers. So for those of you who don't know, I'm streaming on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and Twitter simultaneously. On TikTok, there are these like little animated GIFs that are very, very cute. And whenever I'm overwhelmed with excitement, that means that probably some cute gift has arrived, because they're very pretty. And as a graphic designer, I want to say TikTok did a really good job on that. And I very rarely compliment TikTok on something they did, but these are really cool. And so so those are the reactions. I have the same username across social media. So if you are per se on YouTube and you prefer to watch on Twitter, or you're on Twitter and you prefer to watch on YouTube or Twitch, you can just look up @Yulia. So it's the same as my channel name, and it's also the same. It's the same everywhere. Basically, as I always say, a rule of thumb is that if you look me up on social media and you can't find me, then I'm not there. If you look up YEWLEEA on a social media and I don't come up, I'm not there. So yeah, but yes, to people who are saying things about Scotland, I also do want to go to Loch Ness, because how can you not go to Loch Ness? It's one of the most famous things. Hi, Graham, and hi Maxim. So yeah. So there is that. There was something else that I wanted to say. Oh yeah. So for people who might be new here, hi, I'm Yulia. I was born and raised in Ukraine. I moved to the United States when I was 16 or 17 years old. I have been living here for 11 years or 12 years, basically ever since. My parents live in Ukraine. They're in Lviv. My grandparents live in Ukraine, so my entire family is there. As far as Ukrainians go, so far I have been lucky because they are in Western Ukraine, which means that it has been the least affected as of now. So yeah, on this channel we talk about, we do daily news. We talk about certain, we basically, for the first 40 minutes to an hour, we talk about current events in depth in terms of what's been happening in Ukraine, kind of culturally context, cultural context to some things like Russification, personal stories echoed in history, or rather history echoed in personal stories. And we sort of discuss things like that. And then we move on to the news for the past 24 hours, and we sort of discuss them. Thank you, Karine. And we sort of discuss them in depth, and we give context to them, and kind of discuss them in terms of what that means and what that doesn't. And then we have a little discussion and Q&A section at the end, where you guys can ask questions and stuff like that through everything that happened throughout the stream. Oh, thank you so much, Loyalty. And yeah, so that is that. So please make sure to follow me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok, because on TikTok I have short videos explaining everything Ukraine, especially if you scroll down to the bottom, because those were the videos from February, and I was trying to explain to the Western audience who wasn't exposed to Ukrainian history very much, all of the myths that Russian propaganda had ingrained in our minds, sort of. Also, a lot of deep dives into facts and real Ukrainian history and geopolitics of sort of Eastern Europe, and Europe basically overlaps in that. A lot of the stuff about World War II that no one was mentioning and things like that. And that's all under 3 minutes. On YouTube, I have interviews. Oh, thank you so much, Netlin. Those are so pretty. I love those jellyfish. Basically on YouTube, I have interviews with Ukrainian defenders, and incredible news. So I have received the voiceover from Matt this morning, and I haven't had the time to get to it yet, but tonight, by late night most likely, we are going to receive, I'm going to post Torque interview part 3. So if you haven't watched part 1 and 2, Torque is a defender of Azovstal who is also a serviceman of Azov Regiment. He has gone through defense of Mariupol. He was injured, and with that injury, he has broke through to Azovstal. On Azovstal, he was for a month on the dot with an insane injury, and then he was taken into Russian captivity during the one and only extraction of Azovstal defenders before the full surrender. And then, yeah, he has gone through a month of Russian captivity, and then he was exchanged back to the territory of Ukraine in July. And and so he was super kind to give me an interview and answer my questions. And in that interview, in the first part, he talks about why he joined Azov, why the myths from Russian propaganda are wrong. And in the second interview, thank you, Darlene. Actually, I want a burger so much. Oh my God. There was an animation of a burger and fries, and I'm like, dinner tonight? And then he talks about, in the second interview, he talks about the breakthrough from Mariupol to Azovstal and everything that was happening in Mariupol. And there are visual explanations. I provide maps to sort of illustrate what's happening. And then today he's going to be talking about the life at the bunker in Azovstal. And we're going to get to hear a little bit about Russian captivity, and the rest is going to come in part 4, which should be out faster than part 3 was, because it just took a while to approve the script. Not the script, the transcript, basically. So yeah. So there is that. Kayla is asking, any news on getting the Theragun to him? So we have fundraised for a Theragun for Torque. Oh, thank you so much, Suzanne, and thank you, Lucy, and thank you, Darlene. But so basically, we have fundraised for a Theragun for Torque because he has a torn out muscle in his leg, and he also has, well, there is a lot going on with his leg. If you watch the interview, you'll know exactly what's happening. It's quite brutal. And so he has shooting pains all the time. Thank you, Pauline. And because of those shooting pains, thank you, Darlene, we have fundraised, thank you so much. We have fundraised for a Theragun that will basically relax his muscles and make it much better for him, make it much easier. We'll take the strain of pain away from him. And so I have found friends who are flying into Ukraine, who are flying to Europe and then going into Ukraine. And that way we would get the Theragun faster to him than like shipping it per se. So the friends have left this Monday, and they stayed in Europe until yesterday, as far as I know. And so today they are on their way to Ukraine. So when they're there, they're going to call my mom, and she's going to go pick up the Theragun. Thank you, Netlin. I found out the address to which Torque would like it shipped today. I'm going to give it to my mom, and I want to say like Monday or Tuesday, she should be able to ship it. I will keep you updated, and I will also post you the video. I will show on one of the lives the video of my mom like walking it to the post office. I would like to show you, like, you know, Torque accepting it, but I feel like you know, he's been kind of like weird with the media frenzy. I think there's been quite a bit of media frenzy around Azovstal defenders. And I think that, well, I know that they're so not used to it. You know, they're not media people. And I know that every time we help them, people want to see like, oh, yay, look, they're so happy with their thing. Thank you so much, Karine. And I fully understand that, but I feel like it makes them feel so uncomfortable, because it's kind of like every time they have to like pose for a picture with something. And so I will see if he is okay doing that. But if not, then I will just ask him to, like, to write like a letter or something like that. But I will show my mom walking it to to the thing, and I will tell you his. I will definitely ask him, how he feels with it, if it's like helpful, and things like that. I'm sure he's going to be excited to use it. Like it's so good. Oh my god, there is like this mini version of a Theragun that I saw. Oh my god. Thank you, Kay. There is like this singing hot dog animation on TikTok, and it is the funniest thing I have seen in a while. but so yeah, there's like this whole thing with food. But basically, yes. So he should be very. There is like the little version of the Theragun that I saw online, and like they're so good. These things are so good. If you have any sort of muscle aches, if you have any sort of anything, they are so good. Like the one that we got for him is like the top of the line, super like gets used to your body, operated by the app, sort of like knows what your muscles need, reminds you to relax your muscles based on your like activity strain. Basically, the apple of muscle like muscle massagers, I guess. But there are like cheaper versions and there are smaller versions. There are a lot of different things. There is like a travel version of a Theragun that is good for like back strain and stuff like that, which is something I should look into buying, to be honest. and yeah, so it's really good. It's called Theragun, and it's a muscle massager. It's more expensive than like its other competitors on the market. Thank you, Netlin. The hot dog again. I love those. It's more expensive than other competitors on the market, but yeah, I mean, it's like super modern technology, and as far as these things go, it seems like they're the best in their biz. Just to kind of to say that. Okay. So someone said, I like the sweater. Is this even a sweater? Yes, I think it is a sweater. I think it's like a light knit sweater or something like that, because it's basically like, it's not going to keep you warm, I'll tell you that, but it's pretty. Spell it, please. Theragun. So yeah, I did put, if you want to find it somewhere, you can find it on my Amazon wish list, because I link things like that as well. And I don't like, I should create, instead of an Amazon wish list, I should also just create an Amazon list of things that I talk about that when you guys ask. So these are two like separate things. And I'm probably going to, and I'm jumper. I love the word jumper, and I'm going to try to do that tonight or this week at some point, so I don't have to be like, if you want to find this, go on my wish list, but this is not the point. Please don't buy it, like for yourself. But yeah, so there is that. Also, also, there was Armin's quote of the day is up, so I want to read it. If you don't know, Armin is, in my opinion, very brilliant and knows a lot of really, really great like works of literature and a lot of famous speeches and stuff like that. And every day he sends in the quote of the day, which honestly, I don't know what I would do without it, because it's become its own separate rubric in this in this live cast every day, and they're always so on point and they're always so relevant. So I personally really adore them, and I'm sure that everybody who has been, thank you, New York, and I'm sure that everybody who has been watching me for a while now and knows Armin's quotes of the day would agree with me, but who am I to say that? But anyways, let's read Armin's quote of the day. It says, millennia ago, Lucius Annaeus Seneca said, all cruelty springs from weakness. This is an eternal truth. A great nation doesn't publicly hang a middle-aged nurse in an attempt to establish authority. So this echoes my newscast yesterday, where we were talking about the fact that Russians in Kherson have hung publicly a nurse who spoke out against Russian authorities. And this is kind of like where we talk about bullying, right? Because it's the same with bullies. Like, bullies don't bully you because they are stronger than you. Bullies don't bully you because they're happy people. Bullies bully you because they are sad people and they feel insecure, and so they want to establish authority over other people who threaten them. So that's what it is, and I fully agree with you, Armin. Uh, um, but yeah. But I also appreciate the quotes. Yes. So also Rainbow, I think. Yes, Rainbow is asking what are my plans for Christmas? Um Actually, I have a few plans for Christmas. So I'm obviously gonna go to my in-laws because we have this like it's like a whole thing. It's a Brazilian. It's like a mix of. I love it, but it's like very interesting. So it's my mother-in-law likes to throw these Christmas parties, and they're very elaborate, and there is a lot of dishes, and some of them are Brazilian, and there is a lot of food. And so we're most likely going to do that. And also every year what I do is I throw a Christmas party. Well, it's not a party, it's like a Christmas gathering here. I have a fake Christmas tree because this gremlin over here eats real Christmas tree needles, and that's, a hazard. So we do like a little Christmas gathering. And actually, you know what? Let me show you because I have, one sec. I'll show you what that looks like because I have Polaroid photos from last year's when Anastasia was here. And so Anastasia is my aunt, and she usually comes in the summer, but last year she came twice, and this year she wants to visit me as well. So usually we have food, we will have like board games and stuff like that. And so this is from our last year's Christmas party. Just a Christmas tree. And we do like Secret Santa and stuff like that. And we do board games. I'm not like really a fan of, much alcohol or drinking, but we do cocktails for people who are. I'm really not much of a drinker. And so, yeah. So this is kind of like what we do, but I really love, like I used to do game nights and board game nights and stuff like that. So I just really like hosting like, dinner parties and gatherings and stuff like that. And provided that I haven't done anything this year of social nature, I really am looking forward to Christmas. So let me go back and put this on the wall and I'll come back. Yeah. Also, for those of you who didn't know, we actually have another aspect of Russification in Ukraine that relates to Christmas. So most of the world and most of Europe celebrates Christmas on the 24th of December, Ukraine celebrates Christmas on 7th of January. And it's because of the Christian Orthodox and Greek Catholic calendar. So we used to actually celebrate Roman Catholic Christmas on the 24th way back in the day, but then Russia came in and changed things. So we used to, way back when, in Ukraine, celebrate Christmas on the same day as most of the world, and then it changed. And I think that with the push towards Euro integration, we most likely this is going to change. Because, even if thinking like a consumer and even if thinking like a marketing person or something, or thinking like economically, if we're in the EU and most of the EU celebrates Christmas on the 24th, and all of the like sales are on the 24th, all of the tourism is on the 24th, or like around that time in December, right? It would be weird for Ukraine to celebrate it on a different day. So, and also provided that we don't want to have anything to do with the Russian patriarchy and with Russian, 25th, sorry, Christmas Eve and Christmas. I always say Christmas for the Christmas Eve because I celebrate. I usually do things on Christmas Eve. Hi, Karina. Good to see you. But yeah, so it would be weird for Ukraine to sort of be like in a different, in a different like Christmas time frame. And also, again, this is something that was imposed onto us by Russia. And I think that Ukrainians at this point are so tired of celebrating things and having holidays just because Russia and Soviet Union and the empire demanded us to, that we 100% are not going to do that. Speaking of the Russian Empire, so there is a statue dedicated to Catherine II in Odessa. because Russian misinformation has posed it so as if she created Odessa. In reality, Odessa was there way before her. Hi, everybody. Odessa was there way before her, and she just signed a decree into free entry to Odessa, which had a different name at the time. And basically, it was a decree of annexing and taking over Odessa during the Russian Empire. And there's a huge statue to her. And so there was an online poll and an online vote of whether the residents of Odessa want to take down that statue of Catherine II, and they voted yes. So Catherine II most likely is going to be taken down in Odessa, just like all of the other leaders of the Soviet Union and Russification and Russian Empire. So that's a big win, and I think that dismantling these monuments to Russian figures who are posing as someone that they are not is a big, big deal. And there was another question. So Karina asked if we are celebrating St. Nicholas Day in Ukraine, which is a very, very sweet holiday, mostly aimed at kids. But if you're my family and you like gifts, then it's aimed at adults too. So St. Nicholas Day is basically the day of St. Nicholas. Thank you, Kay. And he was this guy who presumably stole from he's like the Ukrainian Robin Hood. So he presumably stole from the rich and brought gifts to like poor kids. But so normally in most households, it's like, you know, kids will wake up with like little tangerines under their pillows and like chocolates and some small gifts. And it's celebrated in December because, you know, we don't celebrate Christmas in December. So it's celebrated in December. And it's like basically like a pre-launch for New Year's, because in Ukraine we give presents not for Christmas but for New Year's, and it's like a pre-launch for New Year's presents. Normally you would get something small for like St. Nicholas Day, and then you would get your grand present for New Year's. Now, if you were as spoiled of a kid as I was, and if you like to torture your parents into getting you exactly what you want, then you would normally get something medium for St. Nicholas. I didn't get tangerines, nor did I get candy. I would harass my parents into buying me like a phone I wanted for St. Nicholas Day, because, you know, I could not wait for New Year's because I was a spoiled kid. And so I would get like a pretty like extensive present for St. Nicholas. I was also the kind of kid who would stay up. So you're supposed to wake up the next morning, and it's like an overnight thing. You're supposed to wake up the next morning and like, boom, present, right? Well, in my case, I would stay up and I would pretend like I'm asleep, and I would catch my dad in the act of putting presents under like near my bed, and I would just like open them right off, or I would pretend like I was asleep. I would wait for him to leave, and then I would be like, oh, I woke up. Oh, Dad, what are you doing here? You know, like, it depends. But then at some point, you know, when I was like old enough and I knew that St. Nicholas is not a thing, obviously, and it was like appropriate to tell my parents, well, stop with the act. I know that this is BS and you guys put the presents. I would just literally march into their room at midnight and be like, okay, guys, so what am I getting this year? And they're like, what do you mean? You got to go to bed. St. Nicholas is going to bring it. I'm like, listen, we're all adults here, okay? I was like 12, by the way. And I would just be like, we're all adults here, okay? Like, I know it's you. I know it's not St. Nicholas. Like, give me, you know. But like my parents would be like, okay, listen, maybe St. Nicholas doesn't exist, but like manners do. And you should still go to bed and find them in the morning. Like, we're not giving them to you. And we had this like internal debate until I would just annoy my parents to the brim of no tomorrow, and they would just surrender the presents to me, which is also something I did for my birthday. You know, I would march into my parents' room on my birthday, and I would be like, listen, oh my God. Oh, thank you, Jen. The pearl is so pretty. That's so beautiful. That's so pretty. But but yeah, so the last thing I'm gonna say about my super, super not spoiled childhood. So on my birthday, I would walk into my parents' room at like midnight, and I'd be like, "Hello, so this is the day of my birth, and like I want the presents now, not tomorrow." And my parents would be like, "Well, dude, like you haven't been born yet. You were born at this hour." So I was born at like 10:40 or something like that, or 10:20 or 11:20. I always forget whether it was 10:20 or 11:20 or 22:11, So I think it was like 10:20 or something like that, or maybe 11. I don't know. But so I would march into my parents' room and I'd be like, "Hey, presents." And they'd be like, "You weren't born yet. You were born at this hour. So technically you're not that age yet. So this is not your birthday yet." And I'd be like, "Listen, honey bunnies, it's not called the birth hour. It's called the birth day. Okay. And the day of my birth is today. If it was called the birth hour, your argument would be valid, but it isn't. So," and this is when my mom always told me that I should be a lawyer because, like, what do you say to that? So yeah, so that's a little excerpt of my childhood during the holidays. So so yeah, so if you wanted to know exactly how difficult it was to be a parent to me, there you go. I don't know how my parents like dealt with me. I don't know how they survived. um I don't know how they survived, but like they did, and I commend them for thank you, truthful, for having done that. Because, like, hey, I mean, I if my kid walked in and was like, "Listen, I demand my presence now," and I was like, "It's not the right time yet," and they were like, "Sorry, you set the time here." But yeah. Also, Karina is asking if my mom said if my mom chose the name for her French bulldog puppy. Yes, she did. His name is Bonya, like Bonnie, and that's what it is. Technically, apparently, his full name is Bonifazi, which is like beneficius. I don't even know, but we're not gonna go in there because what in the world and why. But so let's talk about today's thumbnail. So today's thumbnail is dedicated to an event that's been happening in Mariupol that we all have heard about that just recently got much worse. So as you guys know, there is no electricity or running water in Mariupol. There is really long lines for bread and food in general. People are living in the brink of starvation. There is a cholera outbreak. There is a dysentery outbreak. People are living with no roofs. People are living with no windows. People are living in the broken homes because, well, like 95% of the city has been leveled to the ground, and Russians have been building apartments, but they've only been letting people who are collaborating with them move into those apartments. So in essence, if you want to have a roof over your head, you have to start promoting Russian propaganda. And obviously not everybody or most of the people don't want to do that. There have been a lot of resistance movements in Mariupol, but people are struggling. People are struggling very, very, very hard, especially now that the cold is coming. And especially now that the climate is changing a lot, and you can't just live in an apartment with no roof anymore and not feel it, or rather not feel and not freeze and stuff like that. So a lot of people in Mariupol have been freezing. They have been freezing, and they have been putting these inscriptions on the facades of their buildings that say, "We are freezing, help." I'll show it to you. I reposted it on my Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter, please do, if you want to know more information behind the scenes when I'm not live. So this is what it looks like. This is a balcony, and that balcony has a little poster that says, "We are frozen, help." This one says, this one also says, "We are frozen, help," and this is at the entrance to an apartment building. Well, hard to call that an apartment building because, again, no electricity. Some of them have no windows. People don't have like really appropriate clothes because, again, you have seen Mariupol before, and it is a ruined city. And so one of the things that Russians decided to do is they took this as an opportunity to forcefully deport Ukrainians out of Mariupol into Russia under the pretense of helping, of course, in order to, because here's the thing, this is what Russians do. This is how Russians Russify, right? They basically deport the population, the original native population of the place. They deport that population to far remote areas. Oh, thank you so much, Todd. Oh, Pisa. But so this is the Tower of Pisa. So basically, Russians deport the native inhabitants of the area into far remote areas of Russia, and the far remote areas of Russia, and then they bring Russians from like far remote areas of Russia into those areas. Like that's what they did with Crimea. They deported Crimean Tatars over and over again, and then brought in Russians. So there is 800,000 Russians now living in Crimea illegally that have been brought there since 2014 to substitute for the native population. But at that point, a lot of Ukrainians fled, obviously, and in Mariupol, a lot of Ukrainians fled. A lot of them, so many people died. And so Russians want to kind of like substitute the population of Mariupol with new people. With new people from Russia. And they usually take them from those places that you have seen where like they have no water or they have no gas. So, when they come into Mariupol, it's not like they're like, oh my gosh, how did we get here? Like, this is awful. No, this looks precisely the same way as their village did. So it's not like they're shook or it's not like they're disappointed. It's just another day in Russia, while like they're restoring the city and building like places to live. So that's what they do. They basically do the substitution of the population, and then Russians end up living on that territory, and they're like, well, Russians always lived here. So what they're doing now is, because before, these Mariupol people, they were refusing to be deported to Russia. They wanted their city back. Their city has been ruined. Their relatives have died there. They weren't going anywhere. And now that it's cold and they're quite literally freezing, Russians have found a loophole, and they're like, well, but we can move you to Russia. There is gas in Russia. There is electricity in Russia. Come to Russia. You're not going to be freezing anymore. Russia awaits you. And so that's how they're forcefully deporting and deceivingly deporting citizens under the guise of helping them from Mariupol into, last I heard, it was supposedly Kuban. So they were deporting them to Kuban. And Kuban is the area of Russia pretty close to Ukraine. And actually, well, funny enough, well, it's not funny, but thank you, Pauline. But funny enough, those areas are, that area is the area of Ukrainian Cossacks that were moved to Kuban. And then that area became Russia. And most people in there have Ukrainian Cossack heritage. They don't really speak Russian in their majority. They speak like this weird mix of Ukrainian, and they speak this like old school Ukrainian mixed with Russian, and they don't even know that they speak Ukrainian. Like when people take interviews from them, they say, well, I don't know how to speak Ukrainian, and they are speaking Ukrainian because they think it's just like a dialect of Russian. But it's literal, like old time Ukrainian. So Ukrainian that hasn't evolved. And they were being stripped of their identity. There were multiple genocides unleashed on them too. They were not allowed to speak Ukrainian. They were not allowed to learn that they're Ukrainian. Basically, there was just like a huge identity cleansing done there as well. And so this is where Ukrainians from Mariupol are being deported to. And that's really, it's just, I wrote that article that was called, What Are the Pillars of Russification, right? So here is a pillar of Russification for you. If you'd like to read more about it, I have a Medium article on it, and it's linked in the description of this video, just like all of my other social medias are, and so is my Patreon. If you'd like to support my independent journalism endeavors. And yeah, and there's also beacons where you can find every single one of my social medias as well. You can also find helpful links for Ukraine. You can find a link to laleka.com, which is a Ukrainian marketplace that features Ukrainian brands that deliver abroad. And yeah, so basically, if you go into the description of the video, every time if anytime you're looking for something, most likely you will find the answer on beacons, which is a link in my bio and a link in the description of each video. Also, anytime I mention a link in the video, I will put it under the description of this video as well in the links mentioned in this episode. So you guys don't have to like go look for it yourself. Okay. So yeah, this is one of the major pillars of Russification. It's, you know, the annihilation of the native population and substitution of it with Russians. And that's what they are doing today. And that's what they're also doing under incredibly deceptive policies, because they have made these people suffer. They have made these people struggle. They bombed their city. They killed their family members. And now they're like, oh, you're cold? Well, we're so good. We are such good people. We are going to move you to Russia where you can be warm, right? Meanwhile, none of them would have to go through this hell had it not been for Russians. Also, there has been an article titled "How Le Mans is Coping," and it's an article in Ukrainian, and it's a really, 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 really sad article about Stockholm syndrome. So basically, for those of you who don't know what Stockholm syndrome is, it's like when you start developing a likeness and an affinity for your kidnapper. So let's say you are a kid and you have been kidnapped and locked in the basement for 10 years. And you know, your kidnapper has been like assaying you. Your kidnapper has been like giving you food once a day. He has restricted your movement. You can get out of the basement. Obviously, it's an abusive situation, right? But because in some moments they treat you nicely, you're so used to being treated as a prisoner that when these people treat you nicely, you think of them as like good people. You start developing like an affinity for them. You start developing like warm feelings towards them because, well, but they're not always bad. They're nice. And so a lot of the times when kidnapping victims have been found and they have been rescued, when they come back to their families or when they start living regular lives, they start missing their kidnappers. Because, and it is quite literally called Stockholm syndrome. And in Le Mans, there are some people that have been expressing those attitudes towards Russians. And they're Ukrainian speaking people, so not even Russian speaking people, they're Ukrainian speaking people who have never wanted to be under Russia, who were protesting against it, who were scared, whose houses have been bombed, whose neighbors have been killed, whose family members have been killed, who have been starving this whole time. And their entire like policy is, so they said, well, you know, so Ukrainians came in and they started exhuming the graves because we need to see like we need to see whether people were, you know, whether people died of natural causes or whether people died from like torture or whether they died from like shrapnel or from bombs, because it is something, it's a procedure. And so these people, some people in Le Mans are like, oh, what are you doing? This is like not right, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, Russians were giving us some bread at the end and they started giving us documents. So they were like integrating us into society. So it wasn't all that bad. They were nice to us at the end. And it's like, these are the people who killed your family members. You are saying this in Ukrainian. And these are the people who are saying like, oh, you know, oh, but they buried our, you know, but they buried them and numbered their graves. So they weren't all that bad. They cared. And it's like, but they killed your family members. And then they put them in a mass grave and numbered it. And then they were treating you like you were not even a second-class citizen, but like you were dirt on the ground. and then they forced you to get a Russian passport, and you think that they gave you a Russian passport because they respect you. And so there has been like a lot of Stockholm syndrome happening in some deoccupied areas. And it's so heartbreaking to see. You know, my dad texted me yesterday. He texted me that article and he was like, it's so awful to see what has happened and what continues happening. I was like, Dad, well, you know, this is not their real attitude. It's psychological torture, and it's a real, like, you know, it's a real illness. It's like a real, it's not, well, not illness, not a disorder, but it's a real aspect of trauma, you know, and it's called Stockholm syndrome. And this was expected. And this was, I'm sure we were ready for this. And I'm sure therapists were ready for this, because this happens in a lot of, чуєш, подивися на? Що в тебе на лиці?
Я помив лице. Нічого. Нічого, помив лице.
А чого кишона?
Ніс гіалуронову кислоту.
А?
Ніс свою гіалуронову кислоту.
Ну, немає така реакція бути. Тобі воно, значить, не підходить, не використовується, тому що немає так, ну, hyaluronic acid не має так реагувати. Це в тебе іде, це в тебе іде реакція. Не користуйся тим тоді. Ну, тому що ти собі тільки гірше зробиш. Ну, значить, тобі не підходить те, чим ти користуєшся, тому що це в тебе реакція іде твоєї шкіри. Ну, так не має бути оце. Ми тобі щось підберемо. Sorry. But basically, yeah, so this was, you know, this was expected, unfortunately, and this was something that was going to happen. And it's just, it's really, it's incredibly saddening, and it's incredibly upsetting. And it's just the reality of, yeah, and it's just incredibly sad. But this is the reality of what happens in occupation. This is the reality of happens when you're being abused. This is the reality of what happens when you're kidnapped. This is the reality of occupation. Yeah, it is what it is. So this is a very upsetting, you know, thing that happened. Okay, well, let's move on to talking about news for the 24 hours. I do need to use the bathroom really quickly, so I do need to excuse myself for a second, and I do need to excuse myself for a second and go to the ladies' room. But I want to, how do you see the Russian support they get? Cine time, yes, Cine is gonna be here, but also one of the things that I do want to say that while I'm away for like 2 minutes, I want to ask a question to you guys. So one is, could you please let me know which times work for you during the week? Because right now I see there are a lot of people from different parts of the world. So on Saturdays, so during the week, I'm proposing that we do 2:30 EST, which would be under normal circumstances 7:30 p.m. English time. And then on the weekends, please let me know, because you know that Sunday I'm off and Saturday I'm not off. So we do the newscast, and I've been doing it later in the evening. But please let me know where you're from and what time of the day would be ideal for you on Saturdays for the newscast, so I can kind of compile it and do something that's in between that works for everybody. So please do that. I will come back, I will read it, and I will and we will figure out a time on Saturdays that works for everybody, because I know that Saturday is not like it's not during the week, right? So it's a different thing, and people have different schedules. So let's see which times are ideal for you for the newscast on Saturday. Let me know where you're from and let me know what time works for you. So time zone and what time is ideal for you for Saturdays. And I'll be back in a second. Okay, I'm back. Let's see. I'm UK anytime early or mid-evening. Okay. EST. Cine setting. I wonder if this is also due to being small percentage of people who did not want to evacuate. I thought only 2% of them were there at liberation. Cine broadcast news channel. Cine needs attention. Okay, so no one. So today, I'm not asking Yulia about Cine. Today, I'm asking Cine about Yulia. That's so funny. Italy, 7 p.m. is ideal. So about, what is it, like about 1 p.m.? Italy, 7 p.m. my time. Okay, Yulia, is Russia retreating from Kherson? Okay, so there are some questions that are not timing related. How is the weather today? The weather is actually very nice today, but today was the day that I absolutely didn't go outside because I had too much to finish. So I'm gonna go outside after the news. Evan is asking, Yulia, is Russia retreating from Kherson? So actually, see, this is like a tricky question because there are very conflicting reports. There are reports that Russians are retreating from Kherson, and there are reports that Russians are setting up a trap for Ukrainians in Kherson, which is why we haven't really heard much from Kherson. But they're also ordering an evacuation of citizens to the other bank of the river from Kherson. So they're forcefully taking the people with them. So we really don't know whether it's whether they're retreating or whether it's a trap. And we are not going to really know until AFU comes in. But I think that one of the reasons why we haven't been hearing much about the Kherson offensive and about the liberation of Kherson is because the AFU obviously has more intel than we do, and they are trying to figure out. We are trying to figure out the best course of action, so a lot of Ukrainian military doesn't get trapped in there. Your Alina is asking how long do you live in London? I don't live in London. I live in New York City, but I did live in England for a little bit back when I was in my early teens. Okay, so also someone else was saying, Gap is saying, I wonder if this is also due to being the small percentage of people who did not want to evacuate. I thought only 10% of Levant residents were there at liberation. Yeah, well, so a lot of people actually didn't evacuate, not even because they didn't want to, because of like Russia or something like that, but they didn't want to evacuate because it's their land, they're older, they didn't want to be moved, they didn't want to do stuff like that. But also, yeah, I mean, it might make sense. It might make sense. It might be because of that, because obviously there are some people in eastern regions that have differentiating views, and of course there is a very little amount of those people, but they do exist. They have been brainwashed by RT and stuff like that. But lovely seeing you too, Krina. But yeah, a lot of but I think not I think, but a lot of it does seem like Stockholm syndrome, because the reason why these people are saying that occupation wasn't that bad is quite literally the pillars of Stockholm syndrome. So yeah. So yeah. Let me move on to the news for today. Oh, of course, I forgot to charge my iPad, so let me just plug it in. And while I plug it in and it turns on, you know, I'm so good at my electronics, it's not even funny. I'm so good at charging them and keeping them in good order for newscasts, you know, just perfect. I'm so fantastic at it. You have no idea. It's not like almost every time one of my electronics is not ready to go. No, no, no. Never heard of that. Are you kidding me? I'm always so ready. You have no idea. You know, the screen is wiped. There are none of my fingerprints on it. What I'm doing right now is just, you know, testing how well the screen has been, you know, how well the screen reflects my reflection, because it's so well maintained. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, so let's go into news, which is interesting because I scrolled down through. Okay, so one of the great news, which is something we're gonna start on an upbeat note. Thank you, Silver Knight. An upbeat note today is an Azovstal defender that has been released from captivity. His call name is Horus. He got married yesterday, and he got married to his girlfriend, and he is also an Azov serviceman as well. And here is him and his new wife. Thank you, Kay. So this is such good news. You know, I do sometimes ponder, because there are so many marriages that are happening right now in Ukraine, obviously on the foreground of the war, and in the foreground of the fact that people don't know how long they've got to live. Thank you, Kay. And obviously it's all like very sweet and very good. And I'm so happy that our defenders and their loved ones are getting married. But I'm also wondering sometimes what the divorce rate is going to be like. When when 10, 20 years from now, because I'm sure that a lot of people weren't planning on really getting married. And after everything that had happened, probably were like, well, we don't know what tomorrow brings, so I just want to do this now. But, it's just me being a very much pessimistic in terms of marriages person. So don't really listen to me, because, I'm a very pragmatic person too. And I'm not like a very, emotionally like, oh, kind of person. So, disregard my opinion on that one. I might be completely wrong. Also, one of the things that I did want to say, about Defenders and about Torque, I remembered. So yesterday, you guys were so sweet and so nice. We have altogether fundraised $400 for, well, fundraised. It was like an impromptu fundraiser, but some of you guys have sent me PayPals to send to Torque for buying an apartment for his parents, and that was so sweet. And so after the newscast, I have received another donation for Torque, and I was saying that, I will see, maybe it's better for me to just send it to his monobank instead of PayPal, because when you PayPal him, it usually says, oh, these funds are being verified or something like that, because he's been getting, his PayPal account is fairly new, and he's been getting like transactions. And so I thought that maybe it's better to send it to his monobank. But then I realized that if I transfer money from my PayPal to my monobank to Torque, basically what it does is it converts them from dollars to hryvnias and then back to dollars. And so there is like a slight amount of money that gets missing. So instead, I actually did send Torque another PayPal donation, and it's processing, because, well, that's what PayPal does. I honestly am tempted to call them on his behalf and just be like, listen, this is the situation. It's a soldier. He's getting donations from people who want to help, and it's not, he's not like, there is no money laundering going on there. It's not suspicious activity. He's just a defender of Ukraine. So this is another transaction that I sent him. So here is the amount. Just want to give you, a bit of a, so you guys know. So 200. So we sent 100, 100, 100, and 100 yesterday, and then another 200 today. So, so that is that. Just wanted to, wanted to be transparent. So there it is. Okay, Reuters says that crypto giant Binance has processed 8 billion worth of Iranian transactions since 2008. Oh, for Torque, okay. Oh, thank you. We just got another 50. So let me send this to Torque as well. I am going to send it to him. Okay, right away. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I just don't want to call out the person because I feel like okay, so 50, and this is to Torque 50 from okay, review, and I am sending it. So let me do this. Thank you guys. You are so incredibly sweet. I don't know. I usually announce who did, but then I feel like, I feel like that's probably not right, and not everybody wants to be announced. So I'm not going to announce who. They know who they are. But here, this is $50 sent to Torque. Here it is for YouTube. Wait, sorry. Okay, so this has been, this is what happened. Okay. Alrighty. So with that said, yay! Thank you so much. So yeah, crypto giant Binance has processed 8 billion worth of Iranian transactions since 2018, despite US sanctions aimed at cutting Iran off from the global financial system. At the same time, almost all the funds, about 7.8 billion, flowed between Binance and Iran's largest crypto exchange, Nobitex. According to data from the leading American blockchain researcher, Chainalysis. President Volodymyr Zelensky says that in the war against Ukraine, Russia has already lost more people and ammunition in Donetsk region alone than in 2 Chechen wars. Also, speaking of the Donetsk region, yesterday when I went to that art gallery opening or pop-up art gallery opening, I actually met a very, very, very amazing couple. So the gallerist, she is Dutch and she has 13 Ukrainian artists under her curatorship. So this is what she was doing. She was doing an exhibit for them. All of those artists are in Ukraine, and they're not outside of Ukraine. They're not just Ukrainians in like New York or Ukrainians in London or something like that. They are mostly Ukrainians who are in Ukraine. The way that she got their art is basically she and her fiance Aaron, they travel to Ukraine every month, or even more often than that, because he has a he is the global outreach director for a nonprofit organization, and I will tell you what the name of it is, and it's pretty amazing. It's very similar to the nonprofit that I volunteer with, which is called Mission Kharkiv, and theirs is called Global Outreach Doctors, and he's a Ukraine operations director. And so what they do is they deliver essential medication and medical aid and ambulances to the front lines in Donetsk. And so they have a benefit to raise like a very significant amount of money for this operation, basically on the 19th of November, as far as I understood. And he was saying that he would like me to attend, which is amazing. And I would love to go if I will be invited. And he won't forget, because I think it's a great opportunity to meet some people who are related to, raising aid for Ukraine and stuff like that. And I would love to have more kind of connections in that sector, because again, I would love to help more than I have at this point. And so, yeah, so I met them, and they're an incredible couple. So she's a gallerist, and she has these amazing artists on her roster. And he, does these amazing things for Ukraine as well. And he was like really funny. He's very upbeat. He was like saying Russians are not invited here. He's fantastic, and she's fantastic as well. And they're a very, very sweet couple. And one of the things, so I really liked some of these paintings. And so what the artists do with them is that originally I thought that these would be donated to charity, but what ends up happening, because these artists are in Ukraine, the profit goes to the artists. But at the same time, also most of them do donate to various charities afterwards. And these are some incredible paintings. There were some that were lithographs, and I thought they were so beautiful. There was this one painting that I was like so in love with, but $300 is a steep price tag. Although it's fully deserved because, it's beautiful art, but still expensive. But so I want to show you, in case you missed the broadcast yesterday. So these, that one on the wall was the one that I really liked, actually. But this is Vasil being happy. So this piece is one of my favorite pieces ever. I think they're beautiful. There were so many beautiful. So some of these works are hers. So this is a different artist. Sorry, I was just trying to like use it with a gimbal so I can then. But so these are the lithographs, and she is the only lithograph artist in Kyiv. And these were beautiful. So there were lots of her works around the place. Her name, I believe, is Alina Gotz. I know it's Gotz, but I don't remember if it's Alina or not. And so this one on the wall is I'm in love with it. I'm in love with it. Like, I'm so in love with it. There were also beautiful photographs. This painting was really gorgeous too. Like, so gorgeous. It's called The Game of Jigsaw or something like that. One second. So yeah, if anybody wants to get some Ukrainian art from Ukrainian artists in Ukraine, Dry Paint Gallery is where it's at, and they have a whole section of Ukrainian artists that's called War Paint. And it was fantastic, honestly. I at some point maybe I will be able to get myself that painting as well. They ship worldwide. So, okay, Ukrainian servicemen of the 30th Separate Mechanized Brigade fired at Russian positions from a self-propelled howitzer near Bakhmut, November 1st, 2022. And this is what it looks like. Oh no, all these cables that are preventing me from picking up my iPad. Okay. Oh. So these are some of the photographs from the front lines in Bakhmut. Wait, sorry. Oh my gosh. Why? So yeah. Oh. Sorry. My nose is itching so bad. Who is talking it about me? It's a Ukrainian superstition. It's like if your ears burn or your nose itches, someone's talking crap about you. Oh, Roman, you looked it up. Yeah, there were a lot of beautiful artists. Okay, so Kyiv 2022 DTF magazine. So this is a piece of art that's been created in Kyiv. This is Maidan Nezalezhnosti. And Maidan Nezalezhnosti is the main square of Kyiv. And so this is like, you know, one of those balance swings for kids, basically. It looks like it. And this thing is called a hedgehog, and it's an anti-tank hedgehog. So yeah. Okay, so inside view from the Slovakian-made 152 millimeters Zuzana II gun howitzer shooting rounds at Russian targets. So I'm going to show you this video, and I'm going to show it to you full screen. I601 on Twitch is saying looks like banks. What do you mean by banks? Like what looks like banks? The buildings in the main square of Kyiv? I'm not sure what you're saying about you. About your palms itch? I don't know what that means when your palms itch, to be honest. I'm also not very well versed in superstitions. I'm well versed in the ones that my mom believes in or that my grandma believes in. Everything else I don't really know. But I also don't necessarily believe in them. I'm just like used to them. Oh, Banksy, I see. Yeah, kind of. It does. It does kind of look like Banksy. That's true.
Так, секунду гляну. У нас все добре, можемо стріляти. Постріл.
Saint Valen, you're back stateside. So we have a so I don't like, I've said this before, but I really don't like calling people that are here every day followers, because like, I don't know, I'm not, it's weird. I call this a community, so a person from our community, Saint Valen, he is a combat medic and he was on the front lines of Ukraine for a long time. And so he just wrote that he is in Hawaii now. And so I'm happy that you were back in one piece, and I'm very glad to see you. Also, not to put you on the spot, but would you like to give me an interview, St. Valen? Because, I'm sure that you could tell us a lot of useful information about what's happening, where you were at now that you were declassified. And, of course, because we know you all and we all very much love you, we would like to, hear your story. So if you, not that I'm putting you on the spot in front of, all of us who are watching, but, don't feel any pressure. Don't feel pressured, buddy. But yeah, but yeah, St. Valen says that he will when he's back from Hawaii. Oh yay! I would love to hear. I would personally also love to hear your experience, and I'm so happy that you're back. Yay! So, can we do a round of applause for St. Valen, at least on TikTok, where you guys can see him, because he deserves one. Because St. Valen didn't get injured in combat. St. Valen didn't get injured in anything like that, but he got injured with a knife while slicing something. Also, oh my gosh, I wanted to show you something. I'm gonna ask Grumpy if he's okay with it, because he knows what I want to show. But you guys, Grumpy, so Grumpy, you know Grumpy, he's a mod on Twitch, and he's a mod. Not the cheese knife, I know. He's a mod on YouTube, and he's a mod on TikTok, and he's a mod on Twitch, and he's at 3 places at the same time. And so, Grumpy showed me how he's able to do this. And if I will tell you that if he lets me do this right now, I will show you exactly how. He's able to do this. And I think I saw this and I was like, oh my God, this is the funniest thing, like the coolest and the funniest thing I've seen, because it's the actual spy, okay? Like, I have zero prerogative to call any of my things a spy layer, because this is, okay, I'm going to show it to YouTube first, and Twitch and Twitter. So this is the spy layer. This is Grumpy's setup of how he moderates the lives. And I will tell you, this is freaking impressive, okay? So this is Grumpy's setup, and this is the spy layer. If you wanted to see what a spy layer looks like, that is one. I am not one. So this is Grumpy's setup for moderating lives, and that's how he is in 3 places at the same time. And I will tell you, I was like, whoa. I honestly think it's so cool. Also, so much me in so many different directions. But yeah, but if I've ever seen a spy layer, that is one. I have no prerogative to call myself a spy layer and to call our community a spy layer, because that is the spy layer. Okay. So Netflix announced the release of a special edition of the show My Next Guest Needs No Introduction. American comedian and presenter David Letterman spoke in Kyiv with the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. The episode will premiere by the end of this year. And in that episode, so Volodymyr Zelensky might not be the only familiar face that you will see in that episode, because remember I told you that Torque was bringing flowers to memorialize his fallen friends, and he was approached by some, some like camera people and asked if he would give them an interview. And so he did give them a short interview, and that's where he was saying like, oh, I don't think the translator did a good job, and I should have like tried my English instead of like my broken English instead of her English, because I don't think she translated exactly what I meant. But so that was David Letterman, and that was for Netflix. And so I don't know if they're going to use that bit, but they might. And so on that show, it might be so that we won't only see Zelensky, but we will also see the second familiar face, and that is Torks. And I really hope that they do put that bit in, because, well, we all know how charming Tork is, and we all know how great he is, and it would be great if he made it to the Letterman show. Okay, on November 4th, late in the evening in Kherson region, 2 Russian Ka-52 attack helicopters were shot down by the forces of the South Air Command. Ambassador of Ukraine to Berlin, Oleksiy Makiev, expects direct deliveries of battle tanks from Germany. We have reason to hope that a decision will be made to supply Leopard 2 from Germany directly to Ukraine, he said. Losses of the occupiers as of today are 75,440 personnel. Andriy Shevchenko, together with United 24, raises funds for the reconstruction of the stadium in Irpin. The first 150,000 euros of the 600,000 needed were raised thanks to AC Milan, which is a team he played on. Andriy calls on the entire football community and big business to get involved. I came to the stadium destroyed by shells and saw children running with the ball on the field, ignoring the large black craters. The enemy managed to destroy the football field, but not the passion of our children for their favorite game. So, as you might know, soccer is incredibly popular in Ukraine. Andriy Shevchenko, or Sheva, which is his nickname, is one of the most famous soccer players to ever live. He has the Ballon d'Or. He played for Chelsea. He played for Milan. He is easily the most famous Ukrainian player. Well, see, I don't know. That might be a Ukrainian person being happy about this place, but if it's not a Ukrainian person on Twitch being happy about this place, and it's a Russian who is upset that we don't like Russians here because, I'm Ukrainian, and it makes sense that I wouldn't be incredibly uplifted and excited and happy to see a Russian person show up on my life, especially like that, announcing themselves as, oh, what's it here? Russophobia circle. Well, I don't know. I don't know why you're even asking about Russophobia, because I'm talking about Ukraine, not about Russia. But anyway, so Andriy Shevchenko is easily the most famous Ukrainian soccer player. He played for Chelsea. He played for Milan. He has Ballon d'Or, which is a very prestigious soccer award, and he is fantastic. And now he is the trainer for our Ukrainian national team. Iran has finally confirmed the supply of drones to Russia. The Iranian foreign ministry said that Tehran supplied Moscow with drones in small quantities, and even before the start of a full-scale war in Ukraine. Iran denies that UAVs are being supplied now. So Iran is saying that they supplied Iranian-made drones to Russia before the full-scale invasion, but says that they're not supplying the drones to Russia now, which makes no sense, to be honest, because there was just an Iranian plane spotted at the Moscow airport. So it's, it makes no sense to deny these allegations because there is a trail of proof. And it was an Iranian plane, not a passenger plane, but a commercial plane. Russians looted the Kherson Art Museum. In 4 days, the occupiers took works of art and office equipment from there to the occupied Crimea, but the peninsula is probably not the lost destination. They call it evacuation, but we call it looting under the slogans of preservation of cultural values. The museum said in a statement, More than 10,000 works of art, including paintings by Ivan Ivazovsky, Mykola Pimonenko, and Serhiy Vasilkivsky. This was the collection of the Kherson Art Museum, named after Alexei Shovkunenko. So they stole works of art from very prominent artists, one of whom was Ivan Ivazovsky. Military exercises in Visegrad, 4 countries started in Poland, PAP. Almost 2,000 servicemen from Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and the United Kingdom, and the United States, as well as 300 units of equipment, will take part in them. An attempt was made on the life of the so-called judge of the Supreme Court of the Donetsk People's Republic in Vuhledhirsk, the local Ministry of Internal Affairs reported. The collaborator is in serious condition in the hospital. He has gunshot wounds. Interestingly, it was he who passed the death sentence on foreigners who were later exchanged from captivity. So he is the one who sentenced Aiden Aslan, Sean Pinner, and Sadun Brahim to the death penalty. And there was an attempt made on his life. Also, speaking of front lines and speaking of injured people, as you might remember, my dad's driver, my dad's former employee is a frontline medical vehicle driver, and he's the one that we raised, and he's the one that we were raising money for originally for the night vision gear. And he was injured on a mine a couple of days ago, and my dad told me about it yesterday. He is okay-ish. He's in the hospital. My dad wasn't able to talk to him yet. In fact, he wasn't speaking to my dad for about 2 weeks, and my dad said, a week ago, I thought to myself, and I was like, wait a second, I'm wondering if something had happened to him because I haven't heard from him. And my dad was like trying to get in contact, and he wasn't coming out. And so as it turns out, they were in a vehicle, and they were driving on a mission, on assignment, and the vehicle got blown up on a mine or something like the details are pretty foggy, but so his foot has a lot of shrapnel in it, and his foot is seriously injured. My dad doesn't know the details yet. He will tell me when he knows. One of his crew members died on the spot, and another one is injured too. So it's incredibly sad, and I really hope that everything's going to be okay. As you might remember, he has a little baby girl that was born during his deployment, and they called her Nadia, which means hope. And he's he's okay, he's in serious condition, like his foot is really injured, but he's stable. So let's hope that it only goes uphill from there, and I will update you as I know more information. Odessa City Council announced the completion of the voting, where the majority of citizens supported the dismantling of the monument of Catherine II. Train from the DPRK went to Russia after the US statement on the supply of ammunition, according to media. It is impossible to determine the purpose of the train from the images, but the crossing takes place amid reports of arms sales from North Korea to Russia and a general expectation of the resumption of trade between the two countries. So as I said, that it's, this is a satellite image basically that shows that this train has been moving from North Korea towards Russia. And as I said, there have been allegations that, North Korea has been trying to supply arms to Russia or has been supplying arms to Russia. But the thing is, I will say that, I'm not necessarily incredibly worried about that because well, their ammunition is incredibly old. The occupiers are redeploying elite units from the western bank of the Dnipro River and cutting off retreat routes for those units that are left behind, said Natalia Homenyuk, spokesperson of the Joint Forces Operation South. This is aimed at provoking the Ukrainian armed forces to launch a premature attack and lure Ukrainian units into street fighting. So this is what I was saying, where, you know, it looks like they're setting up a trap for the Ukrainian military. But here's the thing: we have the intel, and we're going to act accordingly. Also, my dad had said that he has some information and reason to believe that, and it's public information. I forgot who said that in Ukraine, but it was one of the officials who came out and said that there has been a deal made for 1,000-kilometer range basically like air defense systems, or like a 1,000-kilometer range HIMARS. I was talking to my dad yesterday, like very late, and it was after my dog had, you know, left me a surprise in my bed, so I wasn't necessarily paying attention I wasn't paying like super close attention, but yeah, basically that is that. Also, I read the news from a mix of Kyiv Independent, Ukrainska Pravda, and NV, and Ukraine Live. So those are the sources that I use now that Ukraine now has been wrapped up. But yeah, so my dad said that this was the announcement and that it's okay. Air defense for 1,000-kilometer range. Yes, so that is what my dad said, and he said it was public information in Ukraine, and this is one of the officials that came out and said it, and they said that the deal has been signed and everything is okay, so it can be public information now because there's nothing that can ruin it. So that is actually incredible news. An exhibition of works by Ukrainian artists called Ukraine Under Another Sky reflects the reaction of artists to the war of Russia against Ukraine. It includes more than 200 works by 32 artists. In particular, the installation Zastrelisa, with a Z in English is Shoot Yourself, by Kharkiv sculptor Dmitro Iva, was brought to Warsaw. In May, it was exhibited in Kyiv on Taras Shevchenko Boulevard. So this is what it looks like. So this is an exhibit, and these are some of the pieces from the exhibit. Spokesman for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Oleg Nikolenko, responded to Iran's statements on the supply of drones to Russia. He noted that the Ukrainian side will continue to take the most stringent measures to prevent Russia from using Iranian weapons against Ukraine. Russia has not yet destroyed a single HIMARS in Ukraine, Politico with reference to the U.S. Department of Defense, contrary to them saying that they have destroyed over 300 HIMARS, which we don't even have that much. I'm pretty sure we have like under 30 at this point. But yes, according to Russia, they have destroyed over 300 HIMARS in Ukraine, and contrary to their propaganda statements, they have not destroyed a single one. Russians took children from the Oleshki orphanage to a psychiatric hospital in the occupied Crimea. Ukrainian ombudsman appealed to the law enforcement to record another crime of Russia. Russian released from captivity about atrocities of Ukrainians. Quote, they forced disabled people without legs to squat.
Инвалиды приседали постоянно. Приседали. Инвалиды приседали постоянно.
So this guy is saying that Ukrainians were forcing disabled people who have no legs to do squats. In Ukrainian captivity. You know, I mean, here's the thing. There is no way that this is physically possible. Like, to the laws of physics, unless you have trained to do that, you know, as in like you have been in rehabilitation for a very long time, and you are an athlete and you know how to do these things, which still would be incredibly difficult and would require like incredible balancing. it's yeah, I don't even know what to say to that, because it's just, you know, yeah. As we might know, there is nothing that is as impressive as Russian imagination. But it's okay. You know, who am I to say anything? Okay, so Russian imagination, fantastic. Okay, US President Biden says Russia has difficulties in providing its army with new weapons. One of the reasons why Russia has difficulties, and I will not talk about it in detail because it will take too much time, difficulties in supplying its army. Yeah, obviously they have difficulties in supplying their army because, well, first of all, nobody sells anything to them, so they have to resort to Iran and North Korea. Iran has a revolution right now, so Iran probably will not be able to supply them for much longer because, you know, they will have their own, they have a lot to deal with besides that. So there is that. Also, I'm so annoyed that anytime I say Biden, learn more about the US midterm elections pops up. It's like, this is not what we're talking about, TikTok. You can chill out. We're not talking about midterms elections. The Football Federation of Uzbekistan agreed to hold a friendly match against the Russian national team. According to the Football Union of the aggressor country, the meeting will be held on November 20th in Tashkent at the Pakhtakor Stadium. The French intellectuals called on Macron's government to act as the best ally of Ukraine. In order to count on the primacy in the EU, France must have a turn in foreign policy, moving closer to the positions of the Eastern and Central Europe. Finally, abandon the role of a balancing force in the face of Moscow and significantly increase military support for Ukraine. This is stated by a group of French researchers and analysts in an open letter published in the newspaper Le Monde, reports European Pravda with reference to RFI. The exact outcome of the Russian-Ukrainian war is still unclear, but the contours of post-war Europe are already beginning to emerge, according to 6 signatories, French researchers and representatives of this tank. The center of gravity is likely to shift to the east. The influence of France is in such a scenario can be significantly weakened. The French traditional position of balancing power and dialogue with Moscow is discredited within the framework of NATO, which has rallied again, the letter says. So yeah, there is what that is, and I'm glad that the French elites are pushing for this. Maybe Macron will listen to them. IAEA says that Zaporizhzhia NPP was reconnected to Ukrainian power grid, which is big news because Russia has been trying to connect it to Russian power grid. In the coming weeks, we expect good news about air and missile defense for Ukraine. President Zelensky. Also, Ukraine will soon begin to accumulate funds for the fleet of marine drones. So yeah, this is what I was saying. I think that he's referring to what my dad was telling me yesterday, because Zelensky's saying we can expect good news about air and missile defense, air and missile defense for Ukraine, which is most likely what I've been telling you about. My dad saying that we're going to get 1,000-kilometer range air defense systems. Also, I'm going to show you this is Russian about how bad life in Europe is going to be this winter. And honestly, I can't wait for you to see this because it's one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. Let me show you. Let me show you exactly what that looks like. So there is this video that Russians released, and it's a very, very incredibly creative. As we know, Russia is so good about creative advertisement, and propaganda, but this is a very creative ad for, Russia that they want to play in kind of in Europe to suggest that Europe is going to struggle so much this winter. So I want to show you this. It's fantastic, it's so creative. You will see what I posted on Twitter the day, and it was it's a trip. it's a trip, it's a journey. I want to show you this journey, so you guys please buckle up. It's you know, you will be amazed. It's pretty fascinating. I will tell you that much. Okay, so let me see how I can prop my phone so that I don't have to hold it, because I want to go grab a book that I want to show you as well. Video file. Fantastic. You guys enjoy, and we will discuss afterwards.
Woohoo! I'm going to see a Russian movie.
О, привет.
Susie, open the window. It's so hot in here.
So yeah, in Russian idea, European women will be chasing Russian men this winter to get some electricity. The funny thing is, one thing that I wanted to say to that is, like, this is 30% of Russians. And, you know, it's funny, anytime Russia wants to show something off and be like, ha, we are so much better than you, it's always Moscow. Have you noticed? It's never like Novosibirsk, Volgograd. It's never Rostov-on-Don. It's never Yekaterinburg. It's never, you know, you haven't even heard of these cities most likely, right? It's because they have nothing to show. That's because everywhere else, you know, this is not the reality. And it's funny that they're like, oh my gosh, European women are going to look for Russian men because, you know, your winter is going to be so cold. First of all, only 30% of Russian citizens are connected to gas. 25% have central sewage systems and water heating and running water. And about also 30 or 25% are connected to an electric grid. So, like, you know, they're like, oh my gosh, Europeans are going to try and flee to Russia. Like, oh my gosh, like, ha ha ha, look at how great we live. Meanwhile, a very typical Russian building. Nothing to see here. Also a very typical Russian building. Also a very typical, cozy, homey Russian apartment that does have electricity, so it must be in like a city. Beautiful, right? Yeah. Makes sense. Also, oh my gosh, my back hurts so much. Oh, Jesus Christ. I would never have done this, but for the sake of the joke, I should have, I should have used Torque's Theragun while I could on my back muscles. I should have just sat there like, oh. But that's funny. Oh my gosh. But Jesus, kids, don't do what I do. Don't sit most of the day. Okay. Putin likely to continue covert mobilization. Ukraine's military repels 14 advances in Luhansk, Donetsk Oblast. Thank you so much, Mariana. Russian mercenary Wagner Group opens first official headquarters. The once secretive Wagner Group, controlled by close Putin ally Yevgeny Prigozhin, well, not an ally so much. He criticizes Putin a lot, and I have reason to believe that he wants to become the next dictator, and I've talked about it extensively in one of my previous news streams. The once secretive Wagner Group, controlled by close Putin ally Yevgeny Prigozhin, opened a multi-story military technology center in St. Petersburg on November 4th. Wagner Group mercenaries are known to be currently fighting in Russia's war against Ukraine. The group has been focused on human rights abuses, including torture and extrajudicial killings in Ukraine, Syria, Libya, the Central African Republic, Sudan, and Mozambique. So this is actually an incredibly interesting link, and I am going to link it in the description of this video. Thank you so much, Tabby Cat. Oh my gosh, good to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. So let me see. I want to, I'm going to put it in the description so I don't forget, so you guys can get to that link once the live ends if you want to read this article by Kyiv Independent. Because, Wagner has been talking about opening a first headquarters, and I think the reason why it's important is because that way they're going to be able to show their grandeur and recruit more people. Dino87 says, I have a question. Sure, shoot. UK intelligence says newly mobilized Russian troops arrive with minimal or no training at all. The UK Defense Ministry said in its intelligence briefing on November 5th that Russia is struggling to provide military training for its current mobilization drive and its annual fall conscription intake. Yeah, of course they struggle to, because, well, first of all, most of their captains and colonels and stuff like that are not with us anymore, to say it very frankly, and and most of their trained military is also not with us anymore. But yeah, why Ukraine? Okay, so Dino87 says, why Ukraine out of all the countries that were supposedly part of the USSR? Well, they weren't supposedly part of the USSR. They were colonized into the USSR against their will. And why Ukraine? Because Russia stole our history at the beginning of the Russian Empire. They renamed Moscovia to Russia because Rus, and they wanted to take the heritage. Ukraine is a very freedom-loving country. And Ukraine has always been a pain in Russia's butt. We have never really given up and given into Russification. We have always been creating problems for them. Also, Ukraine is a huge country. It's the second largest country in the continental Eurasia, in the continental Europe, after Russia. And if you count Russia as continental Europe, which some of it is. But Ukraine is the second largest country. Ukraine has an incredible amount of natural resources. Ukraine has ports. Ukraine has gas, the second largest gas deposits, gas and oil deposits. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe and controls 30% of grain supply to Europe. Ukraine has a lot of, as I said, natural and mineral resources. Ukraine has steel plants. Ukraine has aviation plants. Ukraine is basically like, we have a lot of different terrains and a lot of different climates in the country, so we're able to grow a lot of different things. There is a lot of different minerals everywhere. So Ukraine is a very, 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 very rich in resources country, which Russia really isn't. Russia doesn't really have a lot of natural resources. Russia just has gas and oil, and everything else is just, like taiga. Well, not everything else, but it's not a very, they don't really grow a lot for the size of the country. And yeah, as Kalahara says, also Kyiv has huge historical value for Russia because they think it's their origin. So yeah, Russia wanted to spin history so that Kyiv Rus is Russia's heritage, but it is not. And it says Kyiv is the mother of Rusian cities, but Rus cities, the cities of Rus. And Russia tries to spin it so that Kyiv is the mother of Russian cities, which is not true. Anyways, Russia has tried to rewrite history, and Russia has successfully rewritten history multiple times, which is why nobody had actually really known the real Ukrainian history. So yeah. So yeah, that's why Ukraine, but also it's not just Ukraine. Russia has invaded Moldova, Russia has invaded Georgia, Russia has invaded Chechnya, then Ukraine. Also, they have a really, Russia has also finagled with Hungary, with Romania, with Bulgaria. Russia has been like trying to spread its influence so far and wide. Russification is one of the like biggest colonization operations that has ever existed. Yulia, wouldn't the landscape be something to do with it? Russia is flat, apparently, aka hard to protect itself. Do not know if any correlation there. Well, most of Russia is like Siberia. Like if you look on the map, like most of the areas of continental Russia really produce nothing. And they're very not rich in resources. Russia is not really flat because it does include Caucasus Mountains, which is where most of its resources are. And that's the thing, that Russia drains resources of all of the republics that it's colonized and then brings it to Moscow and St. Petersburg. So yeah, for Russia, in order to develop Moscow and St. Petersburg and steal more money, they need to drain resources from the places that they occupy. Russia is an empire. That's all it is. Governor, Russia's war kills at least 3 civilians, wounds 8 in Donetsk Oblast. So in the past 2 weeks, I've said this yesterday. Russia's invasion has been really impacting Donetsk in the last 2 weeks. There has not been a single day where someone hasn't died or hasn't been injured. Ukrenergo says hourly blackouts scheduled in 7 oblasts. Ukraine says it downed 2 Russian helicopters, 6 kamikaze drones overnight. Moscow installs ex-mayor of Russian cities as proxy leader of occupied Mariupol. Media says explosions reported in Russian-occupied Kherson. Odessa mayor says online voters back dismantling monument to Russian Empress Yekaterina II. Yekaterina the Great, as she's known in Russia, but Yekaterina the ungreat and the greatest liar is what I call her. Russian soldier who fought against Ukraine suspected of arson that killed 15 people. According to Russian media, the 23-year-old Stanislav Lonkin has been arrested on suspicion of starting a massive fire at a cafe in the Russian city of Kostroma that killed 15 people overnight on November 5th. He had been injured and returned from the front in Ukraine in August. Novaya Gazeta Europe, an independent Russian newspaper, cited law enforcement sources as saying that the suspect shot several times with a flare gun inside the venue, causing a fire. Assassination attempt reported on judge who sentenced UK fighters to death. General Staff of Ukraine says Ukraine hits concentration of Russian troops in Kherson Oblast. Politico says that Russia hasn't destroyed a single HIMARS in Ukraine. Governor Serhiy Haidai says it will take at least 10 years to demine now occupied Luhansk Oblast after liberation. Zelensky says next week Ukraine to start fundraising for Marine drones fleet. IAEA says external power at Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant restored and it's connected back to the Ukrainian grid. Russian media says hundreds of Russian conscripts killed in Luhansk Oblast. According to Russian media outlet Vyorstka, Ukrainian forces attacked the battalion of mobilized Russians, killing hundreds near Makiyivka village in the embattled Luhansk Oblast on November 2nd. Ukraine denies Germany's SPD leader claim of including him in the terrorist list. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Oleg Nikolenko dismissed the claim of Rolf Mützenich, the chairman of the SPD parliamentary group in the Bundestag, that Ukraine listed him as a terrorist. The Ukrainian government does not have a list of terrorists, Nikolenko said. According to the ZDF, a German public broadcaster, Mützenich earlier accused the Ukrainian government of putting him on a terrorist list. Governor says child injured in Russian shelling of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Military says Russian troops tried to break Ukraine's defense in 4 regions on November 5th and were unsuccessful. Governor says Russia shells Sumy Oblast over 50 times on November 5th. And that is all the updates I have, but please stick around because I do have an important thing that I want to tell you. So a lot of you follow a bunch of like pro-Ukrainian accounts and NAFO accounts on Twitter. So it appears so that there has been a Russian propaganda operation that pretends to be pro-Ukrainian but spews a lot of hate and a lot of misinformation. So I will tell you the signs to look out for in order for you to unfollow the people that you think might be participating in this Russian disinformation operation. So what ends up happening is there are accounts on Twitter that have been in the game for a pretty long time. They're not necessarily recently created. They are some of them are in NAFO, pretend to be NAFO. Some of them are just regular accounts that you listen to that have like host spaces and stuff like that. And they talk about Ukraine. They repost all pro-Ukrainian things and all anti-Russian things. But what they end up doing is they spew very, very subtle propaganda in these like little Twitter podcasts that are called Spaces and like in their tweets. Basically, they try to make it look so that central Ukraine and Western Ukraine have different goals. One is looking for revenge and one just wants its cities back. That there are Ukrainians that are hybridized Ukrainians. So they're like Ukrainians that are influenced by Russia. They talk shit about some Ukrainian publications saying that they are trying to spread like a, Malorossian narrative. Malorossia is what Russia calls Ukraine, which is like the little Russia, They're trying to say that there is a cultural war between the West and the central Ukraine because, the Russian-speaking Ukrainians, they're a little more Russified, and that's a problem because sometimes they unknowingly say things that actually hurt Ukraine. So what that is supposed to make you believe is it's supposed to divide Ukrainians into real Ukrainians and not real Ukrainians. It's supposed to make Western Ukrainians feel like they're the real Ukrainians and the superior Ukrainians, and the rest are not the real Ukrainians and are inferior Ukrainians. It is a garbage Kremlin rhetoric. And they're using this through lots of Twitter accounts, through lots of different sources. And I'm going to ask you, please be very careful of pro-Ukrainian accounts on Twitter. Even if you have followed them for a long time and you believe that they're definitely pro-Ukrainian, I have spotted so many accounts like that then say some very, very questionable stuff. Anytime someone who is not Ukrainian, who pretends to be Ukrainian, whatever, says things like, oh, I know because my relative is from Ukraine and this is what actually is happening, block. Anytime someone says that there is a cultural war between Ukrainians, block. Anytime someone says that, Ukrainians in the East are Russified or like some Ukrainians are more Ukrainian and some Ukrainians are less Ukrainian, block. Because Russia figured out their narrative of like avidly trying to discredit Ukrainians from the East is not working, and they're like super divisive narratives and stuff like that. It's like it's not Russia. So Russia realized that their super avid propaganda and super divisive narratives are not working. So now they are going in with a lot of super, like little intricate things. So just be on the lookout. Also, I just spotted a troll that pretends to be Ukrainian. Let's read this masterpiece on Twitch. I am pro-Ukrainian, but you're spewing a lot of hate in my opinion. I get that you're pro-Ukrainian, but when you talk about real Ukrainians, you're doing an injustice. You're talking like far right in my opinion. First of all, I said that there aren't real Ukrainians and not real Ukrainians. I said that Russia is using narratives on Twitter like that to divide Ukrainians. So I was actually talking about the exact opposite, and I was saying that narratives like what you're talking about are damaging. So you can't tell me that I'm spewing hate while I'm actually telling people to look out for such hate and to not believe it. I don't know if you just don't know English well, or if you are trying to like somehow discredit me for something I didn't say and make it look like I'm talking about something I'm really not talking about. But I'm going to give it a benefit of the doubt and just say that you might have misunderstood me. But I'm also going to be very cautious because I feel like this is some stuff that Russian propaganda would do. They would twist your words. Anyways, so that is that. Now we're going to move on to our Q&A and discussion session, but I want to show something off. So Jen Jensen, you guys know her. She's a moderator. You've seen her on Twitch. You've seen her on YouTube. You have seen her on TikTok. She got me this book from my wish list, and she completely surprised me because I didn't know this book was coming. And well, I usually never know. If you get something from my wish list, I'm most likely not going to find out. For some reason, my wish list is weird. Like sometimes when someone buys something, it never notifies me what has been purchased, but sometimes I can see that something's missing, and sometimes it stays on the wish list until it gets delivered. So most of the time I have no idea. And most of the time I find out because Vasil brings up a package and he's like, no, this is not for me, this is for you. And I'm like, what? I didn't order anything. So this was a moment like that yesterday. And I was super excited. This was the package yesterday. And this is a book called You Don't Know What War Is. And it's a diary of a young girl from Ukraine. And she is 12 years old. Her name is Yeva Skalietska. And she kept the diary, throughout the invasion starting on the 24th. And so I will read you the description of this book. And I was thinking that maybe every day at the end of the broadcast, we can read like a page or two or something from her book to sort of, or here's the thing. It says day 1 and then day 2, and it's like 4 pages. So I was gonna say maybe at the end of each broadcast, we can read a day from her diary. So basically, I want to see if there is a prologue. Yeah, everyone knows the word war, but very few people understand what it truly means. You might say that it's horrible and frightening, but you don't know the scale of fear it brings. And so when you suddenly find you have to face it, you feel totally lost, walled in by fright and despair. All of your plans are suddenly interrupted by destruction. Until you've been there, you don't know what war is. So here is the thing. So this is a before, this is the thing. This is a before, so this is like before that, right? So this says, my birthday. I wake up early in the morning on February 14th. Today is my birthday. I'm 12, almost a teenager. There is a surprise in my room. Balloons, 5 of them. There is a silver one, a pink one, a gold one, and even a couple of turquoise ones. I feel excited knowing there will be more surprises to come. Messages are popping up on my phone from people wishing me a happy birthday. 7 people have already texted before I leave for school. I'm eager to get there. When I get to class, everyone is stopping in the corridor to say happy birthday to me. I smile from ear to ear all day long. My face actually starts to hurt. I'm planning to celebrate my birthday on Saturday, and I'm having a bowling party at Nikolsky Mall. I've given out the invitations, and everyone is excited. I arrive home from school. I live with my granny Irina. But when mom comes to visit from Turkey, I stay with her at my other grandparents, Granny Zina and Granddad Josip. Mom's here for my birthday, but dad lives and works abroad and couldn't come this time. Granny Irina, my aunt and uncle, and my little cousin come over for a special birthday meal of snacks and sandwiches. I play a waltz by Tchaikovsky and Beethoven's Für Elise. On the piano, everyone listens. It feels very peaceful. Then we have our snacks and sandwiches. The best was the tasty cake with candles on it. The day has finally come. We're going bowling. I love bowling so much. Throwing balls, getting high scores, having fun. We arrive and I meet up with my friends. Many of them give me gifts of money, but one of my classmates really goes above and beyond. He gives me a beautiful bouquet of flowers and a small, elegant, Italian-made silver chain with a pendant. The joy I feel has no bounds. I thank him a million times. I hope he sees the sincerity in my eyes. We start the game. I'm first. I'm doing very well because I've been bowling before. I feel quite competitive. I enjoy throwing the ball, and I'm impatient for my turn to come around again. Olha is doing great too. Kostya launches the ball at the speed of light, but he doesn't seem to care about the direction he's throwing it in, so he's not having a good time. I win 1 or 2 rounds. Taras has a very curious approach. He thinks he'll get a strike if he makes a running start, and it actually ends up working. But in the end, despite my competitive spirit, it doesn't really matter who wins. It's just nice to be together. Then comes the next day. On February 20th, Mom goes back to Turkey. I've spent most of my life living with Granny Irina, and we're happy together, just the two of us. My life is busy. I attend an English class twice a week, and I'm really enjoying learning the language. Every Sunday, I go down to the city center for my piano lessons. I pass old houses with large windows and the wedding palace, which was built in 1920. The thing I like most about it here is all the shops. Kharkiv has loads of beautiful places. The city center, the Shevchenko City Garden, the zoo, and Gorky Park. The Shevchenko Garden is especially beautiful and has amazing musical fountain with toy monkeys playing all different instruments. There is also a really cool dolphinarium nearby where you can go visit dolphins and beluga whales. There is a beautifully paved street that leads up to Dershprom, a group of tall buildings in Freedom Square. And whenever Granny and I need to soothe our souls, we visit the Sviatopokrovsky Monastery. I'm happy at school. I really enjoy learning and having a laugh with my friends. I always try not to be late for my classes. I really love the breaks between classes, especially the longer ones, because I always have tons of fun with my best friends. Yevhen and Olha. We run wild around the school, spinning around like little helicopters. My favorite subjects are geography, math, English, and German. Once school is over, my friends and I walk home together. I love my room in Granny Irina's apartment. It's very cozy, with really comfy armchairs. I do my homework on a cute little desk. I've got my easel and my oil paints right in the middle of the room. Whenever I feel inspired, I sit down and paint. On my bed, I always have my favorite stuffed animal, a pink cat. It is long like a sausage and white-bellied, and I call it Chupapela. Oh, sorry. One sec. And I call it Chupapela. I don't know why I named her that, or what it even means, but it just stuck. The windows in my room look out towards the city, and the window in Granny's bedroom face the Russian border and some houses and huge empty fields. Granny's apartment has a big kitchen filled with Italian furniture. There is a tall palm tree in a pot in the corner. We have a lot of plants. Also, I really enjoy taking nice warm baths in our huge tub with massage jets. It's such a lovely apartment and in a great neighborhood in a block of buildings on the northeastern outskirts of Kharkiv. I often have lots of homework. Once I'm done with it, I turn on the TV and then I fall into a carefree sleep. And that's how life is. Sure, there have been some rumors and murmurings about Russia, but they're just that, words. Life on February 14th is normal. And on the 15th, 16th, 17th, and up until the early hours of February 24th, 2022, my life is peaceful. So these are some photos of her, the 12-year-old girl whose name is Yeva. And this is her in her grandma's house. So this is her like little chairs that she was just describing in her room, that she like likes them. They're comfy armchairs. And this is her with her easel in her grandma's house. So yeah. So yes, that is basically what has been happening before. What has been happening before in her life before the 24th. And now we're gonna read day 1, and then we're gonna read day 2 on the next broadcast on Monday. Okay, so day 1, the beginning. The night of February 24th, 2022 had been very ordinary. I had slept soundly, but then for some reason I suddenly woke up at 5 in the morning. I decided to leave my bedroom and try sleeping in the living room. I lay on the couch, closed my eyes, and started drifting off. 5:10 a.m., I was woken suddenly by a loud metallic sound that echoed through the streets. At first, for some reason, I thought it was a car being crushed into scrap metal, which is weird because I don't live near a scrap metal site. But I didn't get sorry. But I didn't give it much thought. Then I realized it was an explosion. I saw Granny standing by the window, looking towards the Russian border. She was watching Grad missiles flying over the fields. All of a sudden, a massive rocket flew by and exploded with such force that I felt my heart go cold in my chest. Carl, oh my gosh. Car alarms were going off. Granny was trying to stay calm. She came over saying, "Is Putin really starting a war with Ukraine?" Yes, it seemed he was. I was in complete shock. I didn't know what to say. I knew Granny was telling the truth, but it was very hard to believe. I'd grown up hearing about war, but I'd never been in one. I was terrified. We didn't have time to think. No one had told us what we should do if a war broke out. None of us were prepared for a war. Not me, not Granny, not our neighbors. We just knew we had to leave the apartment and get to the nearest basement. My hands were shaking, my teeth rattling. I felt fear all around me. I realized I was having my first ever panic attack. Granny kept trying to calm me down, telling me I needed to focus. She put a cross pendant around my neck and then put her jewelry box away in the wardrobe. I checked my phone. A discussion about what was happening had broken out on our school chat. Once we were ready, we ran out onto the street and headed for the basement. We went inside and I started feeling panicky again. I couldn't breathe and my hands turned cold and sweaty. The war had begun. Explosions, noises, my heart beating loudly. I couldn't think through the fear and noise. Tears were welling up in my eyes. I was afraid for my loved ones and for myself. Also, I want to say привіт to everybody, хто тільки що прийшов. Я так розумію, тут дуже багато українців з'явилося. Якщо ви не розумієте англійську мову як пахлава 7777, то у мене на Ютубі є інтерв'ю з Торком. Він є азовець, який був на Азовсталі, і він був в російському полоні, і він з Маріуполя, і ви, можливо, бачили декілька його інтерв'ю на інших каналах, але у мене воно 4 частини, 2 вже вийшли. Перша про те, чому він пішов в Азов, про різну російську пропаганду, про татухи і всяке таке, що росіяни вважають нацистськими татухами. І друга частина – це є його подорож з Маріуполя до Азовсталі. І в мене на Ютубі, в принципі, не стріми, але відео всі мають українську, тобто, якби мову оригіналу, і також англійський voice-over, а також ті, що на англійській, де будуть переведені на українську. Тому що також в мене є інтерв'ю з Ейден Азлен, але наразі ще не дійшла руки до того, щоб його перекласти. Але Ютуб не такий самий, як тут, тому якщо хтось має Ютуб і хоче, то можете знайти мене там. Слава Україні, героям слава! В мене навіть собака вміє давати 5 на патріотичні фрази, тому Україна переможе, все буде Україна. Окей. Our basement wasn't built to be a bomb shelter. There were hot and cold pipes all over the place, a lot of dust. The ceiling was low. Tiny windows look up onto the street level. Men stacked sandbags to block them so that no one would get hurt by flying shards of glass if there was a blast. There were quite a few people down there. After a while, once it all got quiet, I mustered up the courage to leave the basement and go outside. I took my phone out and turned on the news. People were gathering, talking loudly, trying to make sense of what was going on. But then, shelling, sharp and frequent. We bottled toward the shelter. A third panic attack, tears, more explosions than I could count. Around noon, our neighbors went to the shops to withdraw some cash from an ATM, but no such luck. There were Ukrainian fighters with machine guns there. Then there were more explosions and people started running back home. Terrified, our neighbor joined them. They said there were Ukrainian snipers positioned on the roof of our neighboring apartment buildings in preparation for the invasion. Hearing this, I called all of my friends to find out how they were doing. Some of their experiences had been very intense. One of my classmates felt his building shake. Another had a bomb explode 100 yards from his house. Others felt their windows rattling. And this is only the beginning of this hell. Another school friend, Mariana, said it took her ages to get to a bomb shelter because the traffic was so terrible. Olha is holed up at home saying she's not going anywhere. Noon. I persuaded Granny to go back home for a bit. We had a quick wash and lunch. I grabbed my diary because I want to start writing things down as they're happening. I also took my laptop, paper and pencil in case I wanted to draw, a bit of food and some pillows and blankets. Then we went back to the basement. 3:20 p.m. We're hearing rumors that 30 minutes from now there will be planes, troops, and bombs. 4 p.m. Nothing's happened yet. Everyone's anxiously looking at each other. I used to take sunny days for granted. A peaceful sky was nothing out of the ordinary, but it's all changed now. Before, when I'd hear about children being cut up in military combat, I never quite understood how terrible it was. I see it differently now, that I've had to spend 5 hours holed up in a basement. I feel it clearly, with a sense of pain and dread. The world has changed for me. It all has new colors. The blue sky, bright sun, fresh air. It all seems so beautiful. I know now that we should rejoice in it all. Every hour there is a new rumor on the news. One of them, which I believed at the time, made me think that keeping this diary might end up being a waste of time. It was a rumor that Russia had withdrawn its forces from Ukraine and Kharkiv had defended its independence. However, it was quickly proven false because we heard more explosions and shooting. Right now, I have only one question in my mind. What will the night be like? I've been told that in wartime, nights and mornings are the most frightening because you never know what to expect. I guess we'll have to wait and see. 4:55 p.m. There is fighting, machine gun fire or missile launches, unknown. We find a few sheets of cardboard from old boxes. We use them and the few blankets and pillows we grabbed earlier to make a sort of bed for us to sleep in. Someone had brought down a table and some chairs and a few games to keep the children distracted. The basement has 2 exits on either side leading out onto the street, but it's too scary to go outside. The basement runs under the entire length of our block, like a long tunnel. The men show us where the toilet is. Everyone understands that we'll be here a while. The men are putting a lock on one of the doors so we can lock up at night. I decide to check if they'd also put a lock on the door at the other end of the basement, and it turned out they had not. Then all of a sudden, my friend Nadia comes bursting through the door as they were being shut by some of the grown-ups. She hugs me as tight as she can, and I hug her back, trying to calm her down. She's shaking. She had heard explosions on the street. 6:40 p.m. It is dark now. I go outside for a breath of fresh air, and it seems quiet. I return to the basement. Nadia and her family think they'll go back home, but as they're getting ready to leave, boom, an explosion. They decide to stay put after all. The adults are all saying the worst is yet to come. We're told there is now a curfew from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. We're also told no one is to leave the bomb shelter because shelling could start at any time. Yay! I doubt we'll get much sleep tonight. I've never felt the time pass this slowly before. There is constant shelling. Apparently, Russia has Ukraine surrounded. The Russians want Kharkiv to surrender. More shelling. I almost have another panic attack. I sit down next to Granny and she hugs me. We're frightened. My neighbors are saying that the city might be forced to cut our water and electricity tomorrow, but we're not giving in to despair. All we can do is pray. Everyone is minding their own business. Someone's sleeping, though I'm surprised they've managed that, so maybe they're just pretending. Others are talking to their friends and family over the phone, trying to figure out what to do next. One person is telling people about the latest news. Some of the older people are covering in their chairs, not saying a word. We children are sitting around a table. Some are drawing, some playing cards, and I join the group playing dominoes. Others are just glued to their phones. Granny's ringing her friends to see how they're doing. She's asking them if we could meet up and join them at a safer shelter because we're too close to the action here and the shelling could get worse. I'm not losing heart because we're a cheerful lot and we support each other. We are hearing that other countries are now proposing sanctions while refusing to send more weapons. In some ways, that might be for the best. So this is day one from this book. This book is called You Don't Know What War Is. I can see people asking how to buy it. You can buy it on Amazon. Ви не знаєте, що таке війна. It's also available in Ukrainian because, you know, the girl is Ukrainian. And it's been translated in a bunch of different languages. So just translate into your language what you don't know what war is. Basically, translate that into your language. Put it up in Google, and most likely you're going to have a translation. I think it's translated into German and French as well. There is a bunch of languages. I don't know all of them, but this just came out in the United States recently. This is an amazing book. I'm going to be reading out of it every night at the end of the podcast. So for those of you who are interested in that here, also, on my Amazon wish list, you can find 2 other books that are incredibly interesting, and they are about how Russia shaped its propaganda in Ukraine and how Russian TV shows were basically imposed onto Ukraine, and all of them were making Ukrainians feel like we are inferior to Russians. And this book is written by a guy who is American, who was a producer on Russian TV. And so he's basically talking about his experience and how he was witnessing from early 2000s, how Russia was preparing its invasion of Ukraine in the informational space. So it's a very incredibly interesting book. If you're interested, it's on my Amazon wish list. And yeah, just check it out. My Amazon wish list is in my, so basically, if you go into the video description on YouTube, it's in my beacons.ai. There is my wish list. If you scroll a little down, and so these books are on there. So you guys just know I'm gonna create a separate thing, probably like a separate Amazon list that isn't my wish list. It's just like a list where I can put stuff that I mentioned, so you guys can easily find it. I just don't know how to do it yet, so I'm gonna figure it out. And if you are on TikTok or on Twitter, then I have beacons.ai. That's my link in bio, and you can find my Amazon wish list in there. And on YouTube, it's beacons.ai in the description of this video. So yeah. Привіт from Canada. Привіт із Києва. Привіт, привіт. Привіт, Київ. So yeah, that is that. Let me know if you guys have any questions today. Let me know if you have any suggestions or anything. We are very past our normal time, and my back hurts so much that I really want to stretch a little bit. So if you don't mind, I would like to go and I also need to go to the laundromat and complete a couple of things. So if that's okay with you, we are going to be done for today. If you have any questions or you want me to answer anything, please just write them down. Write them down under your. Please write them down in the comments of this video, and I'll get back to them at some point tonight. I'm going to try and edit the torque video so it comes out by the end of the night. And I will see you tomorrow. Please don't forget to like this stream if you're on YouTube. If you're new, please follow me wherever you are, because maybe you don't want to watch me, maybe you don't like me, but by you following me, it will expose these streams to more people, and someone who does want to know more information about Ukraine might find me. So every follow goes a long way. Every like goes a long way, every comment goes a long way. So the more you comment, the more you like, the more you share, the more you follow, the more people are going to find out news about Ukraine. On that end, I am going to say thank you. Побачимо завтра, Karine. Oh my God, so good. Hi, Joe. And I will see you guys on Monday, because Sundays are my day off, but I might do like a random just, you know, talky live tomorrow. Alrighty. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.